Hello, and welcome to our third episode of Tuesdays with Thomas. My name is Thomas Douglas, the Artistic Director of the Bach Choir. And during this time of COVID-19 and our quarantine, we're doing our best to bring you a little more information about the Bach Choir and some of the things that we've been doing and we plan to do. One of the plans for the future includes a new viewing, a recreation of Frankenstein based on the novel by Mary Shelley. We're hoping to present it at some point in our next season in a way that would be interesting, creative, keep social distance when necessary, and be something quite enjoyable for you, the audience. Frankenstein, or also called the modern Prometheus, is a novel written by English author Mary Shelley, born 1797. In Greek mythology, Prometheus is from the ancient Greek, possibly meaning forethought. Prometheus is a titan, a culture hero, and a trickster figure who is credited with the creation of humanity from clay, and who dares to defy the gods by stealing fire and giving it to humanity as civilization. But in Mary Shelley's story, it tells the story of Victor Frankenstein, a young scientist who creates a hideous creature in an unorthodox scientific experiment. Shelley started writing the story when she was 18, and the first edition was published anonymously in London on the 1st of January 1818 when she was 20. Her name first appeared in the second edition published in Paris in 1821. Since its publication, the name Frankenstein has often been used to refer to the monster itself. In the novel, Frankenstein's creation is identified by words such as creature or monster. In the novel, Victor begins by telling of his childhood. Born in Naples, Italy, into a wealthy Genevan family, Victor and his brothers, Ernest and William, were all encouraged to seek greater understanding of the world through chemistry. Weeks before he leaves for the university in Germany, his mother dies of scarlet fever. Victor buries himself in his experiments to deal with grief. At the university, he excels at chemistry and other sciences, soon developing a secret technique to import life to non-living matter. About 5 years ago, I took what seemed to be the random notion to watch the film Frankenstein from 1931 with Boris Karloff. I remembered it from my childhood, and it was a great pastime for the moment. But as I began to watch, I started wondering what music from today's society could be the score or could underlie the action of this movie. And I began to think of all the music that I grew up with, of pop, R&B, and even now into hip hop. And I thought, what about Frankenstein with a hip hop score? So that's what we began to work on. So I want you to watch some clips from the creation scene and listen to the score that's going to be a song by Thundercat called Them Changes.
Somebody help, 'cause I can't find my way. Nobody move, nobody move. Somebody tell me how I'm supposed to feel when I'm sitting here knowing this ain't real. Why in the world would I give my heart to you just to watch you throw it in the trash? I've been juggling so long, I don't think I can hold on. Where were you when I needed you the most? Now I'm sitting here with a black hole in my chest. A heartless, broken mess.
The creature demands that Victor create a female companion like himself. He argues that being a living being, he has a right to happiness. The creature promises that he and his mate will vanish into the South American wilderness, never to reappear if Victor grants his request. Should Victor refuse his request, the creature also threatens to kill Victor's remaining friends and loved ones and not stop until he's completely ruined him. But that's for another story. So, 2 questions this week. The first is from Peggy and Apollo. She said, last week you spoke of your interest in Mozart and Motown. Can you say more about that? Well, certainly, Peggy. I grew up in Homewood. My father was a funeral director there, and we lived upstairs of his funeral practice. And there was always a piano that was next to the caskets. And as a young boy, probably 4 or 5, I would go down in the middle of the night and just pick out songs on the piano. Strange pastime, I know. Eventually, my parents decided to give me lessons. And at that time, I was in 2nd grade. And you took lessons during school, and everyone gathered in the same room, and we paid 50 cents for a lesson. We had the same book, and we all took our turn playing. Shortly after that, the teacher recommended that I take private lessons. And I studied with Frank Van Maastricht at Carnegie Mellon University, and then eventually my longtime teacher, Thomas Davis. And so that began my training in classical music. But I also grew up listening to Motown. And I remember in 1964, I believe it was, I went to the Twin Coaches with my parents. It was a kind of a show club, a nightclub, and saw the Supremes. It wasn't Diana Ross and the Supremes at the time, at least the name wasn't, but all 3 of them were there. And that began my love for Motown and pop music. So put them together and you get me. And James, on the north side, how many people are in the Bach Choir? Well, that's a little hard to answer exactly. Right now, we have about 80 people that are part of the choir. It fluctuates by 5 or 10 in either direction. Every year, we have about a 15 or 20% turnover of new people, and that's because some people move on. Their spouses have different jobs. They move to different cities. They decide to join a different choir for a group of various reasons. But we maintain about 80 people in the Bach Choir. Well, thank you for being with us today. We hope it was an enjoyable time, and we hope you learned something also. So tune in next week for Tuesdays with Thomas and the Bach Choir. Thank you.